Hi there, my name's Abe Brown and I am the CEO of Certified Flourishing Coaching. Thank you for taking a couple of moments to check this video out here today, where I want to talk about 3 critical strategies for supporting coach mental health. Now, I know as a coach, often we are totally focused on the mental health and the well-being overall of our clients. Of course we are. I mean, that's our calling, that's our passion, that's our mission. But who's taking care of you? And ultimately, as a coach, I believe that we should all have a coach. But having said that, on the daily, I've got to take care of me. I've got to make sure that my mental health is where it needs to be so that I've got enough in the tank to support the clients that I'm serving. And you know, interestingly, I think we would all agree that overall in society, mental health kind of went down through the pandemic, but this was a trend that began long before the pandemic. As a matter of fact, I'm sure many of you know the research almost as well as I do, that mental health has never been at more of a critical state than it is right now. We're talking about almost an epidemic level of anxiety, epidemic levels of depression, substance abuse off the charts. And this isn't just, folks who are non-coaches. I think a lot of the time as coaches, we think, well, that's everybody else, it's not us. But you know what? As coaches, as leaders, as business owners, as executives, as entrepreneurs, did you know that back in 2019, according to the World Economic Forum, leaders and coaches and entrepreneurs and executives, they're twice as likely as the average population to suffer from depression. They're 6 times more likely to suffer from ADHD, and they're 3 times more likely to suffer from substance abuse. Now think about that for a moment, okay? 2 times more likely to suffer from depression, 6 times more likely to suffer from ADHD, and 3 times more likely to suffer from substance abuse, and 10 times more likely to suffer from bipolar disorder. And so, I think one of the emerging conversations that's happening here, as we evolve and continue to emerge as a species and as a society, is that for leaders, for coaches, for executives, etc., mental health is a real challenge. And I believe, personally, part of the reason for that is because we're so focused on our client. We're so focused on building the business. We're so focused on making it happen. We're so focused on always showing up as the best version of ourselves. But the problem is, who's caring for us? And this is a lesson that I learned in my coaching career many years ago. Well, I want to rephrase that. It's still a lesson that I'm learning. I don't want you to think for 1 second that I have it all figured out. But I can tell you that this was one of the critical things that I discovered early on. And I've been at this for more than a few minutes. And when I was younger, even than I am right now, I remember almost that feeling of heartbreak, that I was so concerned about the well-being, the mental health, and just the overall general, well-being of the people that I was caring for. And I remember feeling so alone, because who's caring for me? And of course, I have some friends, and I've got, of course, a lovely wife and all kinds of caregivers that way. But there was just this moment of professional loneliness that really hit me. And, I'm happy to say that loneliness is both an indicator of the reality. In other words, of course, you don't want to get into this weird dynamic where your client is caring for you, but it's also been, for me, a wonderful wake-up call of what I need to do to support my own mental health moving forward. Now, of course, I'm talking about mental health broadly. I mean, if you need professional help, see a psychologist or psychiatrist, absolutely do that. Absolutely do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no stigma around that. As a matter of fact, you do what you need to do to support your mental health and well-being. But I also think, and the research shows this, that there's a lot of things that you and I can do proactively to build our mental health before it gets to a place where there's an acute crisis. And so I want to share with you 3 simple strategies, but they're critical strategies here today. The first one, and you know it as well as I do, is self-care. Now, self-care, I believe, is so much more than bubble baths and ice creams and candles and glasses of wine. Nothing wrong with any of that, and you do what you need to do. I love ice cream and a glass of wine too, and hey, I maybe get to take a bath once a year, but don't worry, I shower every day, and I love all of that. But self-care has to go deeper. When you think about self-care, what you're really thinking about, we break the word down, it's self care. It's caring for yourself. Now, I wouldn't care for somebody that I love in a way that was abusive or in a way that was harmful. In the same way, when it comes to self-care, how am I caring for myself? Am I getting enough sleep? I'll tell you what, sleep is the missing ingredient, I think, for so many coaches. They don't get that opportunity for that mental and emotional replenishment that comes through sleep. What about regular exercise, right? And again, this is not about running marathons or, trying to out-powerlift Hulk Hogan, but this is about you and I doing what we need to do to fuel our body so that we have the sustenance to continue to give. What about nutrition? As you know, there's some foods that drain you as you partake of them. They take energy from you. But then there's other foods that give you energy, and you deserve the best. You know it as well as I do. And so the first strategy, I think, is self-care. As a coach, we're constantly giving out. So who is caring for us? Well, we're caring for us. I'm caring for me. You're caring for you. First way we do that is with self-care. The second is self-regulation. So we move from self-care to self-regulation. So what does this mean? Well, another way of thinking about this is emotional regulation. Well, when you think about emotional regulation, what you're really thinking about is this idea that I think as coaches, we're super emotional people. I mean, I am so emotional, right? And sometimes I thought, well, I'll get more education, I'll get more knowledge, I'll get more therapy, and I'll become less emotional. I actually discovered the opposite, that the more I learned, the more therapy I myself received, the more emotional I became, and that wasn't a bad thing, it was actually a good thing, right? Why? Because emotions are dashboard indicators. Now, I want you to try to understand that for a second. Imagine you're driving down the road, you got your car there, and of course you have your dashboard which tells you what's going on in the engine. Now, the engine of your life has all of these dashboard indicators that tell you what's happening in your engine. So I've come to learn that emotions aren't either the cause of my problem, nor are they the solution to my problem, but they're indicating what could be going on below the surface in my life. So when we talk about self-regulation, what we're not talking about is suppressing our emotions or repressing our emotions or denying our emotions or hopefully, not acting out on our emotions, but we're talking about honoring our emotions, putting our emotions at the front of what we're experiencing. So when I'm angry, I acknowledge I'm angry, not by hitting a wall or, using profanity against somebody else, but I say to myself, I'm feeling angry right now, I'm frustrated right now. And even that acknowledgement begins to take the power away from that emotion. So my emotion is a dashboard indicator, but I'm still the guy or the gal with my hands on the steering wheel, meaning I'm still in control. So my emotions are telling me important information, but I'm not going to let my emotions take over. Why? Not because I'm afraid of my emotions, but because I understand that my emotions are just an indicator. They're not necessarily the only indicator that I need to look at. And so I need to holistically view a situation through more lenses than just an emotional lens. And so part of this idea of emotional regulation or self-regulation is trying to figure out, how do I process my emotions in a way that's healthy so I'm not carrying all of this excess emotional baggage, right? And that could be disappointment, that could be hurt, that could be frustration, that could be sorrow, that could be heartbreak, that could be a sense of betrayal, a sense of loss. We all have to have a process for self-regulating. Now, for me, I can tell you what really works well is journaling. And I can tell you, when I journal, I use all the channels possible, literally. So what do I mean by that? I write with my journal, like literally take out a pen and paper. Sometimes I get my MacBook Pro and I journal on my keyboard, and I do that literally every day. But sometimes that's not enough. I find that writing it down is really helpful, but I'm also a verbal processor. Maybe you are too. And so oftentimes I will journal, and I know this might look crazy, but I run a lot, and often as I'm running, I'm talking to myself, right? I'm not listening to a podcast or an audiobook. I'm literally, as I'm jogging, I'm talking through the events of the previous day or the previous week that really impacted me emotionally. And so we all got to find our way. I've got mine, you've got yours. Let's sort it out, and let's make sure that we're self-regulating. So strategy number 1 for coach mental health is self-care. Strategy number 2 for coach mental health is self-regulation. I think the third strategy, and this is one that is so important, is safe relationships, okay? Now, when you think about coaching, here's the dynamic. The dynamic is, honestly, 95% of the people in your world as a coach are pulling something from you, okay? They're looking for advice, they're looking for encouragement, they're looking for energy, they're looking for something to get them through the day, through the week, through the month, through the year, onto their destiny of their best self. That's the job, that's the role. But who's replenishing you? And it's interesting because George Vaillant, who for years was the head of the longest running study of mental health in human history, the Harvard study of adult development, what he actually said? He said after his 4 decades of research on this study, he said in life, the only thing that really matters is your relationships with other people. And boy, that's a profound statement to make. And the more I work with that statement and meditate on that statement and look at that statement, it's so validated by other data points. But not only that, it's just true. If everything in your life is falling apart, but you have a couple of safe relationships, I think we would all agree that we're going to get through it. But if everything in your life is falling apart and you're all alone and no one is there to support you, then what are you going to do? So I can tell you this, as a coach, most coaches, their biggest challenge is not learning how to coach. Most coaches is learning, how do I build a business as a coach? Okay, so I'm going to say that again. Most coaches, their challenge isn't learning how to coach. That's kind of the easy part because most of us as coaches are naturally and intuitively inclined towards that. But for most of us as coaches, it's how do I build my business, attracting clients, monetizing my knowledge to support and help and serve others. But, having said that, it's hard to build a business. And along the way, we can get lonely. Along the way, we can get tired. Along the way, we can get frustrated. Along the way, we might feel discouraged. And so what's the cure? Well, the cure is a tribe. You need people around you who are cheering you on, people who've got your back, people who can also share with you their learnings, because hey, we're all in learning, we're all in development, we're all on this journey together. So, that's why I'm such a glad part, I'm so grateful to be part of Certified Flourishing Coaching, because we literally have a global community. So it's not just get trained and certified and then good luck, see you later, but it's actually a community of support. It's a community of people who've got your back, who are cheering you on. And so, you know what, Coach? Please take care of your mental health. Take care of your mental health. How do you do that? Number 1, self-care. Number 2, self-regulation. Number 3, safe relationships. If you're looking for that kind of safe relationship and tribe, please do check us out at certifiedflourishingcoach.com. I'll tell you, we're not just for brand new coaches, but we're also for coaches who've been out there in the field, grinding it out maybe for years, but you're looking for some aligned relationships and people who can support you on that path. So please do check us out, and I hope this video has been meaningful to you today.